Welcome back to Cooking with Gerry. It's a beautiful, sunny, hot Saturday, and I have my lunch already prepared, and there's enough also for dinner. I wanted to use a lot of the vegetables I had because without a fridge, it's very quick for many of the vegetables to spoil, and I prefer that not to happen. So, what I have in the frying pan is the vegetables are celery, beetroot, carrot. Those went in first as far as the vegetables go, as well as the stalk of the broccoli. All the vegetables were washed, and the beetroot and carrot I peeled, and they were all cut into small pieces. That cooked for about 5 minutes, and then I added the broccoli flour. That cooked for a few minutes, and then I added spinach that I chopped up, washed, chopped up, and then just cooked it for about a minute. So those are the vegetables. Just checking to make sure, yep. And before that, I also added the leftover rice that I had. Leftover because a friend was here a few weeks ago and he left me his bag of rice, and there were 3 tablespoons left of this white rice that I added at the very beginning with enough water to cook the rice and a little bit of extra water because the vegetables also absorb water during the cooking process. And with the water at the beginning was also half a teaspoon of pink salt and 1 tablespoon of salted butter. The rice went in first. I let it cook for about 5 minutes. And then I added the celery, beetroot, carrot, and the broccoli stalk. Then the broccoli flour, and then the spinach. The rule to follow, the guideline, is you put the more dense vegetables in first. Let those partially cook, and then you put in the less dense vegetables that need less time to cook. The cooking time depends on your preference. If you like the veggies to be softer, you could add them at the beginning when you add the rice. The white rice takes about 15 minutes. If you want to add any kind of meat, beef, pork, chicken, fish, and they're small pieces, you could also add them into the frying pan when you add the rice. You might need a little bit more water. If the pieces are bigger, then you probably want to add them before the white rice. Give the bigger pieces of meat, beef, chicken, pork, fish a bit longer to cook, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how big the pieces are. And then you add the rice, and then the dense vegetables, and then the less dense vegetables. And depending on how many people you're preparing the meal for, you'll need a suitable sized frying pan or saucepan. For me, this size of this frying pan is perfect because it prepares either 1 or 2 meals. If I needed to prepare food for more people, I'd need a bigger one. Or I would split things up. I would have one of my smaller saucepans with the rice and some of the veggies, and the frying pan with the rest of it. Maybe I could cook the meat separately, but I don't eat meat very often. Once or twice a month is the guideline I follow, but I can change that if I want to. And so another new addition to this meal is going to be, where is it? Right here. This I found when I went to the city almost a week ago. This is mackerel. It's one of the smaller fish, and if you didn't see that video where I explained, the smaller fish are better to eat because they have a lower concentration of mercury. Many people know that there's a lot of toxins in the oceans because of human activity, various things that humans do. The oceans have a lot of toxins, and one of them is mercury. And the fish living in the ocean, they get this mercury inside their body depending on what they're eating. So the lower fish on the food ecosystem of the fish world, they have a lower concentration than the bigger fish, because the bigger fish eat the smaller fish that have this amount of mercury, and since mercury does not leave the body, the bigger fish will have a higher concentration of mercury. So the suggestion is to have most of your fish that you eat be the smaller fish. Tuna, for example, is very common, but it's one of the bigger fish, so it's basically at the top of its food chain, which means it has the higher concentration of mercury than the smaller fish. And you eating the tuna, you are above the tuna as far as the food chain goes, so you are receiving that higher concentration of mercury. Mackerel is a smaller fish and it will have a lower concentration, so that's why I choose the smaller fish. Sardines are also a smaller fish that I like to eat, but here I can only find sardines packed in tomato sauce, and looking at the ingredients and how it tastes in my mouth and how it feels in my stomach, it's not real tomato sauce. There's other ingredients that are added to it that are not quite so pure. So this one I found, I'm going to try it for the first time. It's packed in vegetable oil. Now, very good chance the vegetable oil is not going to be one of the healthier oils, because the healthier oils are more expensive, which would mean that the final product would have to be more expensive. So I'm going to try this out and mix it into my food and see how it is. A note to whoever doesn't know, whenever you have a canned product, it's recommended that you wash that can, just run it under the tap, or even the bare minimum, wipe it with a towel, because when it's on the shelf or during transportation or at the factory, you never know what's getting on top of the container. It could be dust, it could be droppings from mice. So it's suggested to always wash and rinse the lid, and I even wash the whole thing. So that's what I wanted to say, and I had a suggestion on a recent YouTube video that I uploaded that people want to see the food. With this angle you can't see, and I haven't yet figured out how I'm going to have another camera. So I'm going to bring the camera to the standing area where I normally am, and I'll see if I can go to that advice that a friend actually posted, and I'll show you the food, letting the water drip. And here it is. I've got the right hand holding the tripod. So there's that combination of vegetables and just 3 tablespoons of rice in this entire frying pan, which means there's minimal sugar coming from the rice, fair bit of sugar from the vegetables. But because they're not cooked so much, there is a lot of fiber, which slows down the conversion of the food into sugar. And then I will add the mackerel, which is a protein, and a little bit of those good omega-3 fats, and that will also slow down the digestion and the conversion into sugar. So there's today's meal, a little bit different in terms of how I present it, and but it's the same cooking method. You can choose different kinds of vegetables. Instead of the white rice, you can choose the healthier variety grains or seeds, like whole grain wheat, whole grain rice, the other colored rice, the wild rice. There's also quinoa amaranth that we've used several times in these videos, and a new seed that I found at the store when I went to the city last week is kaniwa. I've been using it as a powder for a long time, but this week for the first time I found it in its original seed form. I've already used it twice, and it's very similar to quinoa and amaranth, and the numbers are fairly good, still high in the carbohydrate, but also much higher in the protein and the nutrition, especially than the white rice. So that's it for today. I'm going to prepare my meal and enjoy this heat on the Saturday. Thank you for watching.